My friend, Erin Chase here, and welcome to the new episode. Well, I guess the next episode of the new Erin Chase Show, Erin Chase Show 2.0. We have transitioned from being a kind of sit down and chat show to a cooking tutorial show. And last week we kicked off with homemade pie spice and apple spice mixes that you could either make for yourself or make for gifts this holiday season. And today we are going to continue the pie theme, but we're going to make homemade pie crust. She made one this morning on Amazon Live. We're going to use this for dinner here, actually for chicken pot pie. I'm at my sister's house, which is why the kitchen looks very different. I'm here. I just got home from the TV studio doing TV this morning with NBC in Texas Today, which is super cool. I'll share more about that once those episodes air. But we're making another pie. So we are going to jump right in. I have the recipe here on the linked onto the video. You can check that out later. My question for you. This is my question for you. When you're making a homemade pie, which do you use? Do you use shortening or do you use butter? That's the question. Type it in the comments. Shortening or butter, Crisco or butter. That is my question for you. Actually, I want you to answer first. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to learn hacks for making homemade pie. We are going to talk about little things that you can do differently. And if you've never made a homemade pie, stick around with me because we're going to make it start to finish. And I'm going to show you kind of step by step how to do this, even how to just simply decorate the edges of your pie so that you have a beautiful pie to share with your family this holiday season. Of course, you can do this for holiday pies, quiches. We're doing chicken pot pie tonight with the two that we're making today. So lots of options for you. So we're going to just jump right in. So butter or Crisco, which do you prefer? Butter, I'm going to shift this around. Let me move some things here. I don't have my Top Shot camera with me, but I do have all these other goodies that you might need. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is mix together the flour and the salt. So let me put the recipe up on the screen. Watch how cool this is. Hang on. Whoa, what is happening? Okay, so I'm actually going to use the butter. You know what? Here's the answer to this. Crisco or butter? Crisco or butter? It does not matter as long as it's chilled. Cold. You see, well chilled, half a cup of Crisco or butter, well chilled. It doesn't matter which one you use. I'm going to teach you the fat flaky trick here in a second, but I'm going to use the butter because that is what is chilled. I left the Crisco out on the counter from earlier today, so it's not cold. So measuring the flour, we need 1 1/3 cup of flour and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So pie crusts are, I don't even want to call them a labor of love because I think they're super easy to do. You just have to time them correctly. All right, 1 1/3 cup of flour. And what I mean by that is you've got to make them in advance to chill the dough before you roll it. It will be much easier to handle if you have chilled the dough before you roll it out. I'm not going to do that today on this live just for the sake of time. But it's important that you give yourself enough time. Like, don't try and do this last minute is what I'm trying to say. All right, so 1 1/3 cup of flour and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to use my pastry blender. This is a must-have. You really need this to get the right crummy. Right there. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is take the chilled butter and we are going to cut, we need this whole stick, 1/2 cup. We are going to cut this into like little pads of butter. So I'll probably cut it into 8 little pads and then I'm going to place them in the bowl. 1, 2, there's little guides here, which is really helpful. Okay, and then we're just going to place them around in the flour. And then we're going to use that pastry blender to cut this in until we get to be about pea-sized in flavor, or in size. Flavor, goodness gracious, Erin. So we are just going to use this pastry blender. I have a knife right here so that I can kind of, sometimes the butter really sticks to each other, less so the flour, so you have to kind of use a knife to get the pastry blender off. Okay. All right, so I am using, again, well-chilled butter. Everything needs to be cold. I mean, the flour maybe not, but you could do that if you wanted to. If you're gonna make this like right now, and then go to bake it to make your pie the same time that you're making the crust, you might want to make sure everything is super cold, including the flour. My flour is just sitting here at room temperature, which is totally fine. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna just check something really quick to make sure that we have audio. I have a strange feeling about the audio, and I just want to make sure that everything is good to go. About the audio. We are good. Okay, sorry. So continue to cut this in until we get to pea size, and just look for the larger chunks, and then continue to work your pastry blender through this, kind of rocking it back and forth, just kind of mixing. It's kind of the satisfying part of the pie crust. So is the rolling, I suppose. Pie crust is, again, it's that labor of love, but it just makes a difference. It really does. I just think that here's why. Here's tip number one. You want there to be these little fat pockets. You want to see the marbling, okay? I'll show you in this pie we did this morning. See these butter pockets? This is going to be this piece right here, this piece, like if we cut a piece, this is going to be the flakiest piece of the flakiest crust because it's got that little pocket of butter, that little pocket of fat. That's what makes it flaky. So while you want these pieces to be kind of, I'll show you two examples here. Pea-sized needs to be cut down further. Like you want the pea-sized, but then when we go to mix the dough, once we add the water, we don't want to overmix it to spread out. We want that marbling of the butter or the shortening, whichever one you're using. Okay, so chilled butter, mix up, and really look to make sure that you don't have any too large pieces. Again, we're going for pea-sized. Okay, but we want that fat is going to be what gives the crust that flakiness. Okay, so I'm going to call this good to go. Let you see that there for a sec. Okay, next what we're going to do, my secret ingredient, I always add this. You do not have to add this, but I always do, is 1 teaspoon of cold vinegar. And the vinegar just helps with the chemical reaction of the butter and the salt and the flour all mixing together. So we're doing 1 teaspoon of that. And then I'm going to start with 3 tablespoons of ice cold water. It is ice cold. Like, pull it off the top, ice cold. This is what we're doing here. You don't want ice in there, but filter out the ice, get your ice cold water. We're starting with 3, and then I'll probably need 1 or 2 more. And then I'm going to just use a fork. And again, I said we don't want to knead this dough, but we do want to get it mixed together. We want, again, what we're after is that marbling in the dough. So I just kind of use the back of a fork and just sort of toss it around. And you can see we're going to definitely need more water for this, but the dough will start to come together after 1 or 2 more tablespoons of water. Cold, cold, cold is the name of the game. Let's see. If you need to add a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon more beyond what is there, you do that until the dough is ready. And you'll see in just a second what that is supposed to be. All right, homemade pie crust. you're just joining, that is what we are making. Cooking tutorials is taking over the Erin Chase show. We've transitioned it a little bit to be a little bit more about cooking. We'll still interject some other things as well, but this is starting to come together. It's really forming along where the fork is. Just gonna continue to mash and incorporate this without, again, over mixing. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit more water. All right, should be good. Just pull all that in, and then I'll switch from the fork and I'll use my hands to finish pulling the dough together. But we don't want to knead it like we would knead bread, let's say. Okay. While we're waiting, let me know your favorite pie, or what's your favorite thing to make with pie crust. It could be savory like a chicken pot pie or a quiche. It could also be your favorite holiday pie. My favorite is the pumpkin chocolate cheesecake. Now, I'm being very gentle here. I'm just trying to pull the dough together. So this is making a single pie crust worth. If you were doing something like an apple pie where you wanted to have a top on it, or you wanted to create a lattice, or you wanted to create, cut out like little tiny leaves to decorate the edges, then you would definitely need to double or even triple this depending on how you were decorating your pie crust. Okay, now here's where we're going to test this. I can tell this is a little bit dry. I'm just kind of gently rolling. I'm not kneading this at all. I'm just trying to pull in all the pieces from the bowl. Okay, now what you can do is you can tear off like a pea or marble size and just kind of roll it and see how you want it to not be sticky, almost like a cookie dough, but you also don't want it to be crumbly. If it's crumbly, then you need to add a touch of water. So this side is actually a tiny bit crumbly. So I'm going to just add a little water into the bowl, and then I'm going to let the dough pick up that water, just like this. Okay. Again, don't push, don't need too much. Okay, now I'm going to say that is ready to be put into the fridge. So here's how you want to put this in the fridge to chill. I would say about 30 minutes to an hour at the minimum, or of course, if you wanted to chill it overnight, you could totally do that too. So we're just going to take saran wrap. I'm actually not going to do this right now, but I'm going to show you what I would do. Okay. So we want to make this easy to roll tomorrow, so it's not too sticky. It's just got the right amount. It'll be nice and chilled, so it'll be easy to roll out, nice and even with your rolling pin. Okay, so I'm going to just form it using my hands into this sort of like roundish disc. Now you need to think to the future that we want it to be round because we're going to roll it into a circle. So we need to do this, okay? And then you're just going to wrap the saran wrap around it. And then you want to, I'm going to do one side. I'll show you. You could even roll it at this point. I'm going to do one side and just, I want to get it thinner than this. I want to get it to be about a ½ inch thick, okay? And because it's not perfectly chilled, I'm not going to fully roll it out. I'm just showing you what I would do is if I was going to put this into the fridge. Okay, so it's kind of a round shape. Wrap it up all the way. You can chill it like that. Okay, so let's fast forward an hour from now, pretend. We're going to take this out of the fridge. We are going to unwrap it and get it ready to roll it out. Okay, so first thing we need to do, I do have this silicone pastry mat. You do not have to have one. You could certainly do straight on the counter. If you have a smaller mat, you could do that. But I like this because it gives you the guides for the size that you need. Okay, so a little flour all over. You don't want any missing flour spots, especially right now since this dough is not all the way chilled, just because for the sake of the live stream, I'm not fully chilling it. Okay, So if you're doing a pie that is like what you see there, a pumpkin pie or a pumpkin cheesecake or an apple pie, I always add just a touch of cinnamon here, just a little bit. And then there's just a little extra pop of cinnamon flavor on the bottom of the pie. You do not have to do that if you're doing a savory pie. You could do a poultry seasoning or a sage even. Just mix that in there, okay? It's just a little extra pop of cinnamon. You do not have to do this. Alrighty. Next, we pretend that this has been chilled for an hour. It is not, so I'm gonna have to be extra careful since it's not super chilled. The reason that we want it chilled is because it makes it easier to roll, okay? So we're gonna lay that there, and I am gonna add more flour to the top and more flour to the rolling pin. And then we are gonna roll this to, it's actually rolling fairly well, I think because everything was so cold. I definitely prefer to roll these after you can see the beautiful marbling. I mean, look at this. If you go kind of rogue and you can see we have a little situation happening on the side over here, you can absolutely tear, I guess, probably, and perform a little surgery almost. Okay, so I'm just missing this little section over here has kind of gone rogue. Okay, this is actually working out pretty well because everything I used was so cold. Okay, and I'm actually going to leave it like this even though we're way off to the side over here because I can use that when I go to make the edges real pretty. Okay, and I'm actually going to use my sister's pan because I used mine earlier. I remember where she keeps it. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so pie plate, just a typical 8 or 9 inch pie plate. And we are going to transfer this now. Now there's 2 ways that you can transfer this into your baking dish. One is you kind of roll it over the rolling pin and kind of like, it's gonna like loosely hang over the rolling pin and then you kind of transfer it over. It's one way to do it. I personally prefer where you kind of pick it up like this and drape it over the rolling pin. I prefer to fold it into fourths and then transfer it in there. I think it's easier to do that. If this is a little extra sticky in certain spots, then I just use a knife. You could use like a cake froster or something like that to pull the bottoms up, and then it's just easier to handle this and nothing's going to tear when you do it this way. Okay, so we have it like this, and then you just place the you place the corner into the middle and then you just unwrap it and then press it into the plate from here. So you can see I already knew this was going to be not in a perfect circle, but that's okay. So this is where we get to have the fun. This is where you're going to press it evenly. You're going to get it up to the sides of the pie plate. If we need to tear some of this off, you just tear it off and you just perform a little pie crust surgery like this. You just kind of mush it together like that. If we have more, we can tear off a little bit more for some of these other sections. So it doesn't matter. It's nice to get it in a good circle before you transfer it, but if you don't, it doesn't matter. Okay, so from here, what I like to do is just get it really even all the way around, and also with nothing hanging over the edge because we don't want these to burn when it goes to be baked. So I just, this pie plate already has a little bit of a decorative like ridge to it, but you can certainly do your own decorations like I did with this one. You can see this one has just the forks and then there's the pinch where you can just like pinch the sides. I'll show you that in a second. It'll look a little different on this pie plate because this pie plate's a little bit deeper. But at the very least, we need to go around to get the top even without anything hanging over. So you just kind of hang out with your crust, get it all the way going around, just like this. This one, I might actually leave it because it kind of already has, actually this is not the edge. This has the little edges on the side. I'm just gonna go around, all the way around, dust off that flour. There we go. All right, so let's say we did want to do the fork trick on this, even though this pie plate's a little bit different. So all you do is you just get it all even and flat around the sides, and then you just take your fork. I feel like that's just the easiest thing to do, especially for a beginner. And you just, hey Jan, you just take a fork and you literally just go, you kind of layer it over the last prong. If you need to dip your fork in flour so that it doesn't stick, some of the fattier parts of the crust might stick a little bit. So you just, I have the flour right off the camera view here, but you just dip it and just go all the way around like this. Super easy. The other option is where you pinch. So you just pinch it up, and wherever your finger was here, you just do another notch right next door, and you just keep going around. If you don't have enough crust to pinch, just gently pull it up from here, and then kind of pinch like this, and then you'll get these beautiful ridges. It also makes it, I feel like sometimes pumpkin pie, there's too much filling, and so if you pull up the ridge like this, you get a little extra millimeter or so of crust height so that you can not worry about that baking over. So there you can kind of just see. I feel like the fork and then this sort of pinch angle is just pretty. And then of course come along behind it and make sure that nothing is hanging over the back of this because that will burn. Okay, the question then is, do we pre-bake or do we bake it kind of as directed? And I prefer to pre-bake a homemade crust just about 7 to 10 minutes at 350, and then you can then adjust the oven temperature and bake the pie as directed. You don't have to do that, but that is how I prefer to do homemade crusts. Of course, you could just follow the recipe as directed when you're baking. So the last thing I need to share with you is you definitely need to get yourself a pie crust shield. You can see mine is well used over the years. And basically, you just put this on so that that beautiful edge doesn't overcook. You don't want a perfectly cooked pie crust with the filling on the bottom, and then you have like super dark brown edges. It's just not going to taste quite right, I promise. So you definitely want to do this. If you don't have a pie crust shield, you can kind of make one with foil, but you would just want to make sure that this is protected from the heat that the oven, I mean, this is going to spend, depending on what you're making, anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour in the oven. And the longer it's in there, the more chances it is for this outer edge, especially the taller ones like this. If you edge it like this, really can, get brown. So definitely use a pie crust shield. So super quick recap. We blended together a cup and a third of flour with a half a teaspoon of salt. Just mix that together. And then we cut in 1/2 cup of, I used well-chilled butter. You could also use well-chilled shortening. And we cut that in with our pastry blender and got that to be about pea size, the little butter crumbles pea size. You can see the butter marbling. You want that marbling. The marbling and that fat in there is going to be what creates that beautiful flaky crust. Then we added a teaspoon of cold vinegar, just white vinegar, and I think we ended up doing about 5 tablespoons plus a teaspoon or so of cold water, ice cold water. You literally want it to be ice cold. You can see the measuring cups in there still. So ice cold water, it's going to make it easier to form the dough and roll it out. We mixed all that together with a fork until we could gently pull it together, not kneading, but you gently pull the dough together. Wrap that up in saran wrap and refrigerate that for about an hour. The chilled dough will be a lot easier to roll out. I was able to get this rolled out fairly well here now live because everything was just well chilled. So you still can do it kind of in the moment like we just did here, but definitely recommend doing chilling it before you roll it out. So just wrap it in that plastic wrap in the fridge for an hour or even overnight, and then you can then pull it out to roll it out. Okay, add flour. You can see the little mess we've left behind here, and then roll that out till it's even and large enough to fold. I always fold into fourths, transfer it into the baking dish, and then create, get it spread out evenly. If you need to move parts around, you can move parts around, and then create the edging that you want to have for your pie. So today we're just going to have half fork prongs and half pinch is what's going to be for our pies tonight. So that's homemade pie crust. I hope that by showing you from start to finish, you can see just how easy this is to do and how it just tastes better, my friends. It really does just taste better. So I hope that this sort of cooking tutorial and these hacks and seeing kind of start to finish how you would pull this together gives you the confidence that you need to make a pie crust for your family this holiday season. Hello again. Hello from my sister's house. I was up here doing some other work here in the DFW area. So that is why I'm coming live from her house this afternoon with homemade pie crusts. I'll be back in my kitchen on Thursday for the Dinner Made Easy show. And we're making a red wine beef roast. We'll actually be live in the morning. So come hang out with me on Thursday morning. And of course, we'll be back next week with more episodes of the Erin Chase Show and the Dinner Made Easy show. You guys, thanks for joining me today. Happy holidays, happy pie making, most importantly. Pumpkin double chocolate cheesecake is definitely on the menu for my pies this holiday season. I haven't decided on the other ones just yet. So have a happy rest of your Tuesday, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Erin Chase Show or the Dinner Made Easy Show.